In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Claire Booth is a former newspaper reporter who has worked in Missouri, Washington, D.C., South Florida, the Seattle area, and the Bay Area. She's reported on many high-profile stories, including the Laci Peterson murder and the San Francisco dog mauling. The case of a deadly cult leader became the subject of her nonfiction book, The False Prophet, Conspiracy, Extortion, and Murder in the Name of God. After spending that much time covering crimes so strange and convoluted they seemed more fiction than reality, she had enough of the real world and decided to write novels instead. Her acclaimed Sheriff Hank Worth mystery series takes place in Branson, Missouri, where small-town Ozark politics and big-city country music tourism clash in, yes, strange and convoluted ways. She joins us to talk about Home Fires, the sixth book in her Hank Worth series, which launched April 2nd.
So Home Fires is the sixth book in my Sheriff Hank Worth series, and this is a big one. I've been working toward this one for quite a few books, and so I'm really excited about it. Hank faces a huge catastrophe. A fireworks distribution warehouse in his county explodes, and there are multiple fatalities. So he, as the book starts out, is busy responding to this scene and coordinating all of the efforts and helping victims' families and all of those kinds of things. As they start to do the investigation and all of the cleanup and processing, forensic analysis that's involved, something is uncovered that he never would have expected. And it sends him off spinning in an entirely different direction. And it leaves his second in command scrambling to fill his shoes because he is nowhere to be found. So it, like I said, this one's been a couple books in the works, me thinking about it in the back of my head. And I was really excited that it was time to put it all down on paper.
When you started all of this, did you have a sense for how you wanted to develop your protagonist?
No, I didn't really have a goal for where I wanted to take him. I had a goal for what I wanted him to be, the type of person that I wanted him to be, who he was surrounded with. It was really important to me that he would have a happy family life. I gave him young children because that to me was more rare in books of this nature than, say, the teenager or the young adult child of the police detective or whatever. And I thought I could have a lot of fun with young kids, with my protagonist having young kids. And that definitely turned out to be the case. That has been a lot of fun. And then also given me a lot of storytelling opportunities, having that kind of a family. What he's got, his wife runs the emergency medicine department at the local hospital. He's got the two little kids, and his father-in-law lives with him. It's a great family dynamic to play with. And that was more what I wanted to go toward than a particular endpoint.
Home Fires is the sixth book in Claire Booth's Hank Worth mystery series. You can find her online at Claire Booth, ClaireBooth.com. One of the most attractive aspects of your writing is the authenticity of the dialogue between your characters. What's the secret of creating conversation?
I pretty much have a conversation in my head. Father-in-law, Duncan, is probably a combination of several older gentlemen I've known throughout my life. And so that is tons of fun to just cherry pick from those friends and family members in my own real life and combine them to make Duncan and what he would say and how should he be irritating Hank at this point? Should he be supporting him? What would be the best way to either move the story forward, or maybe that's not necessary at this particular small point in the story and let's just have a little bit of fun with a conversation around the kitchen table or that kind of thing. So mostly it's the voices in my head talking to each other.
Part of the allure of your location is the juxtaposition of local politics with show business money. Why Branson, Missouri?
The reasoning was exactly that. Took a look at very strange town. And I mean that in a very loving and kind way, but there's no place else that is like that, where you get the genuine small town and then the huge tourism. And I thought, I can wreak a lot of havoc in a place like this. The practical bit of it was my husband was born and raised there. And so that is how I became familiar with Branson in the first place.
And speaking of family connections, anything autobiographical about this story?
No, really. Duncan would be the only one who would be a composite. And then there's one other that is based on a real person. Everyone else is not. Saying that, of course, that's only probably 80% true, because no matter what, you're taking from your experiences and your family and the people you were raised with and they're going to find their way in. No matter what you do, they're going to find their way into your story. Well, there was one book that my sister called me up laughing, and she got it in regards to something that Duncan had done. And she goes, "Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. I know exactly who that was." But he had no clue. That made my day because my sister was on board. She knew exactly what was going on.
Home Fires is the book. Clare Boothe is its author and our special guest in conversation. Her website, clarebooth.com. Plotter or pantser?
I am not a plotter. I am definitely a pantser. And for this particular book, for Home Fires, I knew that it was going to start with the explosion. The fireworks warehouse was going to explode. And so I just started writing that. I didn't know exactly what the investigation was going to be. I didn't know what offshoots. I don't know any of that when I start.
You've enjoyed a duality from a career perspective, covering true crime in inverted pyramid style to writing fiction. Which is more fun?
That is like asking me which kid I like the best. I can't answer. For different reasons, they both are absolutely the best job on earth. I loved being a newspaper reporter. I just loved it. It was meeting new people every day, learning new things every day, interesting stories, getting to write those stories, getting to tell the stories of people whose stories otherwise would not be told. That was a very important thing to me, to be able to do for people, to give them a voice, especially with crime reporting. Without newspapers, people's deaths wouldn't be acknowledged and sometimes wouldn't get investigated. And I consider that a very important part of what I did. And then there's nothing more fun than making stories up, right? With my novels, being able to completely go to the other side.
Was it hard to make the switch to fiction?
For me, it took me a long time to get my brain working in that way, even physically, like I was using different muscles in my brain when I sat down to try to write my first novel. And it took a while for those wheels to start really turning at an easy speed. I have my easy fiction speed now, and that took some doing to get my brain to work in that way.
Well, when I devoured the first book in this series, it read to me like you had been writing these things for a while and knew exactly what you were doing. How did that happen?
I think because I've been reading these things for a while. I started in on Agatha Christie probably when I was 11 or 12, and Nancy Drew before that, and all of the classic ones that people say they read. Being such a huge reader that you tend to internalize that form, the rhythm. I always knew I wanted to be a newspaper reporter. I never took that anywhere else and said, "Oh, I want to write my own mysteries." So it wasn't like I would spend my teens reading, okay, this is narrative structure and this is the 3-act way to do things and this is how I save my cat. None of that was going on. But I just devoured these things. And I think that soaks into your blood and your thoughts, and you instinctively know, if not what works, you know what doesn't work. You develop that spidey sense on what you're doing. And I think that I read so much. Who says you got to go play outside? That I read so much is part of the reason for that.
We're in conversation with Clare Boothe. We're talking about Home Fires, the 6th book in her Hank Worth mystery series. It launched April 2nd. The website is Clare Boothe, ClaireBooth.com. What was the tipping point that turned you to fiction?
We could not sell, my agent and I could not sell my second true crime book. That was right when the economy went off a cliff in 2008. And I had a proposal for another true crime after The False Prophet, and we couldn't sell it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not going to start yet another true crime proposal. And it had already been well established that I was not happy if I'm not writing. And so I said, okay, I'll give fiction a shot.
What is it about writing that brings you joy?
That's a very good question. Putting words on a page and picking the right words. I am never happier than when I'm sitting, when I got the dogs at my feet and I'm paging through my thesaurus, looking for the perfect word. That makes me very happy. Painful when you're doing it, but you feel good when you're done.
How do you work through the pain? What keeps you going when it's hard?
I get up and move. Even if it's just getting up and putting in a load of laundry, the physical act of leaving the laptop and moving around, you let the dogs out in the backyard, or when my kids were younger, there were enforced breaks. You got to go pick them up at school. There's no delaying that kind of thing. Those always help clear my head a little bit to where when I come back and sit back down, it's, oh, okay. I'm just going to ditch that whole last paragraph. And instead of going left, I'm going to go straight. It's not a 180, but it's that little bit of a jog to where things open up in your head again and you can keep rolling along. I'm also a big fan of semi-thought things. I do a lot of puzzles, and yard work is really good, where you're doing something and it takes a little bit of thought, but then in the background you can be mulling things over as far as your story goes.
What's next for Hank?
So I'm working on book 7, and that one is a little more amorphous than 6 was at this point, which is fine. Most of them are. So it'll be interesting to see. He is definitely becoming more and more familiar with that area down in the Ozarks and the people who populate it and make up Branson and that county. And so I want to delve into the pros and cons of that. Will he maybe become a little bit too comfortable? And that comes back to bite him in the butt. We'll see.
Home Fires is book 6 in Clare Boothe's Hank Worth series. It's available now wherever cool books are sold. And you can learn more about Clare's life and writing at Clare Boothe, ClaireBooth.com. Thanks for the conversation.
Oh, thank you. This was great.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.
This was great.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.